All right, today we're talking about something you probably haven't thought about in, what, decades? I'm talking about those goofy generic graphics that used to live inside Microsoft Word. Well, turns out they're not dead. Not at all. In fact, they're making a comeback in like the most unexpected place you can imagine.
I mean, come on. You remember this, right? Or maybe this little pixelated computer with a smiley face. For a whole generation of us, these images are they're a core memory. They were the building blocks for every single school project, every office newsletter in the 90s. They were absolutely everywhere. And yeah, they were completely disposable. Well, believe it or not, those same worthless digital icons, they're now being painstakingly recreated as huge oil paintings. And they're being treated as serious contemporary fine art. No, I'm not kidding. You heard that right.
And they're not just hanging there on the wall, they are selling. A painting of one of these generic clip art images can go for $10,000, sometimes even more. It is hands down one of the most bizarre and honestly fascinating transformations happening in the art world right now.
Okay, so let's get into it. The big question we're tackling here is how? How on earth did the most generic, mass-produced images in history turn into unique, expensive works of art? The answer is pretty wild. It's a journey that takes us through old-school tech, a ton of nostalgia, and really, the very definition of what makes something valuable in the first place. So, to really get how clip art got its value back, we first have to understand how it lost it. And here's the ironic part. It actually started out as a pretty valuable thing.
See, before computers, the term clip art was super literal. We're talking printers buying actual booklets of images, physically clipping them out with scissors and then gluing them onto a page layout. Think about that. Every single time you wanted to use one, it meant you needed a physical copy and real manual labor. That made these graphics scarce, and because they were scarce, they were valuable.
And you can really see this whole journey from valuable to worthless when you look at the timeline. I mean, the first digital libraries pop up in the early 80s, but the real killer, that was the CD-ROM in the 90s. All of a sudden, you've got thousands of images on one little disk. Then Microsoft Word puts them everywhere, makes them totally universal, and by 2014, they were so worthless that Microsoft just shut the whole library down. That was it. The age of infinite free copies had officially arrived.
But have you ever stopped to think about why clip art had that specific look, that flat, kind of goofy style? Well, it wasn't just some random artistic choice. It was a direct result of the technology it was built on.
Okay, to get that look, you have to understand a key technical difference. Let's break it down. Photos, right? They're made of tiny dots or pixels, and when you zoom in, they get all fuzzy and blocky. That's a raster image. But clip art, that's a vector image. It's not made of pixels. It's made from mathematical equations. That means you could scale it up to the size of a building, and those lines would stay perfectly crisp and sharp. So here's the key takeaway. Those technical limitations actually forced a specific style. For a vector graphic to even work on an early computer with almost no memory, the image had to be super simple. So a person became a stick figure. A handshake, it became two simple shapes. This whole situation created a unique visual language, one that was all about flatness and iconic simplicity.
All right, so we've established it. Clip art was worthless, disposable, and super simple looking. So how in the world did it find redemption? Well, the answer lies with an artist who had a knack for turning everyday stuff into masterpieces. I'm talking about Andy Warhol and his soup cans.
Pop artists like Warhol basically gave us a recipe for turning low culture into high art. And if you think about it, clip art fits this recipe to a T. 1, it's mass-produced. 2, it's instantly recognizable. 3, it's totally anonymous, no single author. And 4, it was considered totally disposable. So when a painter today puts a clip art image on a canvas, they are running the exact same play that Warhol ran with his Campbell soup cans.
The artists doing this today, they're part of a movement called post-internet art. Now, that name is a little confusing. It doesn't mean art made after the internet is over. It means art that is about the internet. It's art that's really digging into how our digital lives have just completely rewired our relationship with images, with ownership, and with value itself. And this is really the core magic trick they're pulling off. They take something that is fundamentally not scarce at all, a digital file that costs nothing and can be copied a million times over, and they completely reverse the process. By spending weeks, sometimes months, painting it by hand, they transform that weightless data back into a one-of-a-kind physical object, and suddenly, it's valuable again. Okay, but this whole thing brings up a really obvious practical question, right? Can you just take a commercial image, paint it, and then sell it for thousands of dollars? Like, isn't that a copyright violation?
Well, it's complicated. It's a bit of a legal gray area. A lot of that old clip art was labeled royalty-free, but that doesn't mean free to do whatever you want with it. That license often restricts resale. So for artists, the safest bets are images that are clearly in the public domain or stuff with a Creative Commons license. Otherwise, yeah, you are risking a lawsuit unless your painting can be legally argued as a transformative new work of art. But really, this whole movement is about so much more than just legal loopholes or what's trendy in the art market. It's about digging into our shared digital past and trying to figure out what it all even meant. You can think of these artists as digital archaeologists. When they paint 90s clip art, they're unearthing artifacts. These images are little time capsules. They trigger this incredibly powerful nostalgia, don't they? They take us right back to our first encounters with computers. And by treating them seriously, this art forces us to question what makes anything valuable and makes a strong case that our seemingly trivial digital culture is actually worth preserving. And honestly, this whole idea has become even more relevant right now. Think about it. We live in an age where AI can spit out a million unique, complex images in a second. In that context, the fixed, limited, and totally generic nature of classic clip art, it suddenly feels kind of important. It represents a very specific, historical moment in technology that we're never getting back. It's gone forever. And this quote really just nails it. What these artists are doing is challenging the gatekeepers of taste. They're taking something that professional designers once thought was ugly or tacky or just plain tasteless, and they're forcing all of us to look at it again. They're basically asking, hey, who gets to decide what good art is anyway? Which, of course, leaves us with one last fascinating question to chew on. The incredible journey of clip art, from a worthless file to a $10,000 painting, proves that our idea of value is always changing. So I want you to think about this. Look around at our digital world today. What disposable memes, what emojis, what glitchy images that we don't even think twice about, what digital trash from today will be hanging in the art galleries of tomorrow?